everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday.
We are sponsored by Guinness today. Coming to you live from Goats here in Columbia, South Carolina. We are not some Yankees from Connecticut. We know what we're talking about.
Where you can't buy proper AR-15 magazines.
We have many guns in our gun safes at the house. But this is our favorite OR in Columbia. It's a very lawyer-centric bar, particularly for defense lawyers. So some of our knowledgeable folks may pop in, and we might have to drag them in and give some opinions on certain things. So far, there's only a couple shy, renowned lawyers. Oh, hey.
There's a lawyer.
Here comes a less shy lawyer.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's happening?
We'll bring you in a second.
Are you using a meeting?
I'll show you guys kind of what's going on here. We've got a little lawyer happy hour going on. Lots of South Carolina lawyers here. I don't think Dick is going to show up tonight, but who knows?
A lot of hardcore, rabid criminal defense lawyers.
Yeah.
All with a lot of knowledge, but bias, as we've talked about our own bias, but we try to be objective about this as well.
Yes, no bias.
If you can't admit your bias, then you're just lying to yourself.
There you go.
Everybody has bias. But what happened today? What was he
Hold on. See, we're already a Guinness in, so we need to go ahead and introduce everything. So, my name is Hannah. This is Brian and Luke Sheely of the Sheely Law Firm located in Columbia, South Carolina and Charleston, South Carolina. They are identical twins, which is a fun fact. If anyone can't spell some of that one, heard it here first. We are currently at Goats, one of their favorite bars in Columbia. This is officially the Bring the Jury vodcast, credited after the awesome Judge Newman in his famous line, "Bring the jury."
Bring the jury.
Who are currently very, very busy deliberating on everything. So I'll pass it to you guys now. Kind of take away what happened today.
Right. We had Jim Griffin get a chance to show his stuff, and his background is a prosecution background, and he referenced that a lot in his closing argument. Before this trial, Luke and I had not really seen him do much of anything, really. I mean, he kind of works in a federal system for the most part that is mostly not in front of a jury. There's a lot of white-collar crimes, that kind of stuff. So I've never seen him actually in a jury trial. But we knew that between Jim Griffin and Dick Harpootlian, he was the best suited to talk to this Colleton jury. He can kind of relate a little bit better. He's also, even though he's well thought of lawyer in legal circles, he's not overly arrogant. He doesn't come across as arrogant in front of the jury. And his first kind of line of his closing was almost apologetic. "I'm sorry that you have to be here." Luke and I, we're trial lawyers, and we appreciate lawyers that can really have the art of persuasion. Hey-ho.
Hi, how's it going? Sorry.
We'll bring you in a second.
Yeah.
We're going to get your opinion on the Murdaugh
Give us your
trial.
thoughts.
Oh God, I have not been watching that closely.
But Jim Griffin maybe isn't schooled in the art of persuasion, so to speak. Not like how John Metters was. We'll talk about that in a second. But Jim Griffin definitely had a masterful ability to recall all the facts, and he didn't have a PowerPoint. And one critique is that he was relying upon Doug. I mean, we should have a whole offshoot of this podcast just about Doug. I mean,
some clerk of court, it was very helpful.
Doug, without Doug, none of this trial would be possible because all these lawyers are relying on Doug
to pull up this exhibit, that exhibit.
And so Jim Griffin he wasn't operating his own technology. He was asking Doug to pull up various things, and he was really spent like I thought he would do a lot of his time trying to attack the state's sloppiness, the SLED's almost indifference to the investigation. They didn't want certain things done. They didn't preserve certain things in a very good way. Yeah, well, I think we can bring it in a little closer.
We're gonna bring it in.
Whatever viewers said I look like John Hamm, To you, sir, or lady, I will raise a glass to that.
Well, wait a second. We're twins, so what?
Oh yeah, they're twins.
Don't I get a little John Ham
Yeah,
love?
you'll all be speckled and bearded, and
You're John Turkey.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
the pollen has me speckled today, I will say.
All right, is the sound better now that we are a little bit closer?
How we doing? Can we hear? Good.
Awesome.
But you know,
Okay, go ahead.
so what Jim Griffin lacked in maybe persuasion, closing argument techniques, he did have a good handle on the facts, and he kind of methodically went through what he believes will allow jurors to have reasonable doubt. Luke, you want to talk about that?
yeah, I mean, again,
Or do you want to talk about why you're so mad today?
we can talk about that in a little bit. I'll give my general critique on Jim Griffin first. I think it was definitely the right choice for him to do it. He is probably not as adept with his white-collar background in federal system as doing jury trials in state court. It requires great persuasion. There's a lot of techniques to that. He did not come across as arrogant, which had been kind of a problem, mansplaining, all that. But he, you know, when you start by apologizing and you just kind of have a conversational tone, his job is to persuade people of things that they hadn't thought they could view or consider. That's really your job as a zealous advocate. And from a trial persuasion standpoint, not so great. But from a kind of, hey guys, I'm here, you know, let me talk to you about doubt. He made some pretty good points. You know, he described the motive, it's just not making a lot of sense. He tried to articulate why. How it really, you know, put an international microscope on Murdaugh. It didn't really buy him much time. You know, he's talking about the timeline is based on if your phone is not being responsive, then you're dead, apparently. I would love to have seen him, while he's talking for about 30 minutes, get about 10 texts from Dick Arpullian, and then pull out his phone and put it on the Elmo and show it to the jury and be like, apparently I died 30 minutes ago because I didn't read those texts. I mean, you have to like blow somebody's mind. You have to blow their doors off and really empower that jury to make them feel like they've been drugged down in the muck by the state and that they've been flooded with crimes that will be handled in another court simply to think that Murdaugh is a bad guy, which he is. But being a bad guy does not mean you are a family annihilator, as Creighton Waters says. So I really wanted some more true trial persuasion. I mean, state court murder trials are like a night fight in a phone booth. It's not this sterile, sanitized thing that you see in federal court. So he's at a disadvantage, but I think he did pretty well. He made some good points. We can talk about some of those points. I'll basically give him a B minus. But you know, to have a chance of winning with all this overwhelming financial crime evidence, I think you need an A+ closing, honestly. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, you never want to apologize for being there. You really want to. And my brother and we're twins and we're best friends, but we're also pretty competitive with each other. And Luke is one of the best closers in the game. And you know, one thing that Luke does, and it's hard for me to say, so it must be true for my brother, is he really, when he's getting ready to close, he draws the jury in, and Luke will often have a long moment of silence.
Pregnant pause, as they call it.
Where the juror's like, well, when's he going to talk? But it gets their attention. Maybe it's a minute, and then he'll begin with something emphatic that just rips them up out of their seat. And so that's in stark contrast to Jim Griffin today, who's apologizing for everyone having to be here, for the case being so long. It's your duty to do this kind of job, and he kind of built the jurors up a little bit by saying that we got the best criminal justice system in the world, and we do. But I just didn't like the apologetic tone that he took initially, but he was more relatable in terms of between the two lawyers, Harpootlian and Jim Griffin. But he really, you know, we'll talk about the screw up later on, but like, he started just attacking the case. I mean, he did get into the crime scene. You know, he just kind of he had a bunch of notes, and he just he didn't really have a theme other than this. Let me go through all of the reasonable doubt in this case in a systematic way, and you'll just get it. There was no theme like the state had, where you had the storms gathering. There's no theme like the state had, where the hounds are at your gate. I mean, you know, I feel like John Metters is a much better closer than Creighton Waters. Creighton's got a good understanding of all the facts in the case, but like Jim didn't really have a theme other than saying the state's theme was ridiculous, but he didn't have anything that he could like latch onto. He really did not. He just went through his notes and said, this is reasonable doubt, this is reasonable doubt, this is reasonable doubt. You want to talk about some of the doubt that he was bringing out to the jury today, Luke?
Well, yeah, I mean, he attacked the timeline, trying to dispute the fact that if your phone is not being responded to, then you must be dead. I mean, that's not a scientific timeline, that's not a pathology timeline. Of course, the timeline is very tight. But he tried to embrace that kind of video. It's the best piece of evidence for the state. But he said, look, he's down there, and that's a normal family dynamic. Listen to their voices, the people that knew him best. You know, they don't seem concerned. They don't see, hey, Big Red, Daddy, why are you holding that gun?
Oh, Hannah, you got a hat. Hannah must have.
Oh no, where'd he go?
Left. So he's trying to embrace the bad evidence, which is always a good technique. I've been thinking about this case for a long time. I'll jump around a little bit. There are a couple things, thoughts that had not occurred to me. So I will arrogantly say that if a thought has not occurred to me, then it must be something special. But one of the things he said about the data of him driving so fast to Alameda and driving back so fast, Creighton Waters makes a big point to say he's trying to manufacture a timeline and get himself away quickly from the crime scene, make it seem like he's at Alameda more than he really is. And that makes sense if you're driving there, but if you're driving back, that doesn't make sense. You would want to go slower than normal. You wouldn't want to be driving the same speed. So that was pretty inconsistent. That didn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, thank you.
And that was very interesting to point that out. So I did enjoy that. You know, he just really hammered that. I was disappointed to not see him reenact that shotgun.
What would you have wanted him to do?
If you haven't seen our latest video, we do our own reenactment.
With a broom.
With a broom, which we understand may not be exactly the length of the shotgun used, but
I would want him to reenact. I mean, Harpoon is not a particularly tall guy. I think he's getting old, you know, a little shorter with age. Probably about 5'8". Well, bring in a mannequin. Make sure it's 5'8". Get a protractor, do a 45-degree angle. All those Benellis were the same. It's just like whether it's a Model 1, 2, or 3, they're the same length. So get the Benelli evidence and put it at a 45-degree angle, 2.5 to 3 feet away, to show there's no sibling, and see where the butt of that Benelli is on the floor. It would be, if not impossibly low, it would be very awkwardly low to be making a kill shot basically while squatting on the floor directly below an assailant. Directly below a victim. That's just a very bizarre position for an assailant. So I wanted to see that. I wanted to see it on cross. I never saw it. So that would be one critique is you got to bring that visual. There's a lot of talk, but jurors are bored at this point. They want the visual.
Yeah, so we were relying on Doug for the visual aid. I mean, John Metters objected a couple times. One objection was, I think he was concerned about, I mean, basically they're taking YouTube videos of the court proceedings and he's splicing them into his closing to show how, like, Blanca said, you know, that they were like the love of each other's life. How, like, the kennel kind of keeper, who was such an interesting guy, said that they seemed like he was like best friends with his family. So so he did. I did like how he used actual trial testimony. I mean, sometimes you'll see in normal trials when a lawyer wants to use testimony from the trial itself, they'll get a transcript and they'll blow it up on a big whiteboard. But this is, you know, obviously a huge international phenomenon. I mean, here we are talking about it on TikTok, right? So
at Goats.
At Goats. So But he was able to take YouTube live video and play it, and I thought that was pretty good. I mean, he didn't have a PowerPoint. He was kind of rambling around on his notes, but I'm sure he caught the jurors' attention when he was playing all that. So I thought it was good. It was just a reasonable doubt act. Reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt. All the things that we've been talking about, all the things that everyone knows. He had to explain the lie. I mean, I will say this, in terms of reasonable doubt, he did bring out effectively and reminded the jurors that SLED lied to the state grand jury to get the warrant. They lied when they said that Alec Murdaugh had a bloody shirt that was full of Paul's blood on it, which turned out to be a fabrication. Now, the state never used that in trial, but the defense is allowed to present a full and complete defense, and so that because that document got turned over, they were able to flesh it out and attack the integrity of law enforcement. And so the jurors are aware of it, and they also he was able to bring out the fact that the lead case agent misled the the state grand jury about 4 different shotguns in the house that had both birdshot and buckshot. So bringing out the either mistruths or outright misinformation to the grand jury to get a probable cause warrant on this case, reminding them about how we started. And he did say some things too. We were on WLTX last night, and I mentioned this. Jim Griffin is baked into this case. He is literally in 2 interviews about this case. He's in the second car interview with Agent Owens. He's also on the line in the confession to lying about the suicide attempt from rehab. He was already representing Paul on the boat, felony charges. And so I was wondering, in the recap last night on WLTX, one of our local news stations, if he was going to insert himself into closing, basically vouch for his client, vouch for his relationship with his family, and he did that. I mean, I don't think he did a good job in terms of persuasion. He did what was within himself, which was to be very masterful of the facts, not try to get. He was almost like a guy with a really well-noted notepad, sitting on a park bench with a friend, trying to talk about why he understood something. It was not persuasive, but it was relatable, I will say. And then at the very end was when he got the most persuasive, when he said, "Listen, Paul was a friend, Maggie was a friend, and I know that my client didn't kill them." And he choked up, and it was real, true, actual emotion. And so he was, even though for all the reasons that we said all along that he's wrongly in this case, don't let your client talk, don't let him be on recorded interviews. For all these reasons, he's in it, but he was able to use that at the very end and kind of humbly and emotionally vouch for his own belief in his client's innocence in a real way. That was probably the best part of his closing.
Let's take some questions.
Sure.
So walk us through what the jury's deliberation will look like. What steps will they go through? What responsibilities will the 4 lady have? How will they get to their conclusion? Do they write down, different votes? Do they, I guess, talk us through all of that, the logistics.
Some of it is a mystery, but they will take back all of Judge Newman's instructions. They will be in written form, and they'll have it at a table to read. And it's not that complicated here. You've got murder, and they get instructed what it is. They get told about reasonable doubt, credibility, presumption of the innocence. But they're gonna start gauging each other. They're gonna debate, they're gonna battle, they're gonna compromise, they're gonna try to persuade each other. And this is all under the backdrop of having been there for going on 6 weeks. They are tired. Some of them might feel very passionate about the case, some of them could care less. And so, it depends on the makeup of the jury and how duty bound they feel. And so you hope that just for the process and the system, that they care, they know how much each side respectively cares on their positions, and you hope that they do that honor and justice, because at this point it's not like they just wasted a day. they have really devoted a substantial chunk of their year to this case. And so you hope that they do it justice, they deliberate, they ask each other questions.
You know, and I think they'll probably start right out the gates by doing a head count. All right, who finds guilty, who thinks he's innocent, or is undecided, and they'll just draw lines in the sand, and then they'll start gathering the evidence to try to review it and see if they can influence anybody. That's typically how this will happen. And I don't know if this will be a question coming up, but in my experience, in my opinion, is if it comes back tonight with a verdict under 4 hours, it's guilty.
Oh yeah, it comes back tonight, it's guilty.
And what's the longest a jury has ever deliberated? I think I saw 55 days.
I mean, oh man, I don't know.
I think the longest currently is 55 days. It was in Oakland, California for, I don't even know, it was like 3 police officers were facing some charge, murder, I don't know, but we could be here for 55 days.
Well,
who knows? Or 3 hours,
so,
we'll see.
If they're deliberating tomorrow, that's a win for the defense.
Right.
I mean, not that they will get acquitted, but that is good that they're still thinking about everything, given the overwhelming evidence of all his other lies and crimes. That's a very hard thing for a jury to separate.
And even though the jurors for all these 6 weeks have been strictly instructed, you cannot talk about this case until Judge Newman gives them the case. They're getting to know each other. They're getting to know each other's quirks and personalities. There's jurors that are becoming friends. I mean, we were talking last night. We had a jury trial where like a couple hooked up. Were holding hands at the end of the jury trial. They were strangers when they came in. And at the end of the week jury trial, they were holding hands at the end of it. And we had a jury member get kicked off this morning. It was disclosed that she had conversations with people about this case that were not the jury, and she was talking to outside sources and deliberating essentially prematurely.
Yikes. So that means that we are down to just the one alternate, correct? And that, okay, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen when they were discussing like kind of what position or what to do essentially with the alternate. Does she stay? Is she free to go? You know, all the different things. And they asked, you know, the state, they asked the defense, and then at the end they asked Alex himself if he would like for the alternate to remain, or if she would, or I don't know if it was a he or she, was like free to go. That was wild. What, have you ever seen something like that?
No, and you know that it doesn't happen. So court protocol, procedure, etiquette, the judge has complete control of his courtroom or her courtroom. And you can tell that from the way Judge Newman operates. I mean, everyone respects his authority, but by statute, by codified law, you know, once the jury gets the case, the alternates that are left get excused. And Judge Newman, usually his practice is to thank them for their service, let them know that they're an integral part of the system, and say you can stay if you want to find out what happens, or you can just leave. But never, ever has an alternate juror be essentially sequestered away from the main jury in a separate room without their phone, and by agreement from the parties, be asked to stay. Well, not asked, be instructed to stay in case something happens in this jury. I think both sides are thinking, we started with 6 alternates, now we're down to 1. What if someone gets sick? And
They invested so much in this.
Both sides have invested so much time and energy and resources, and they just did something that I've never seen done in South Carolina, and it happened today.
So a lot of people are asking, you know, if you were on the jury, would you decide guilty or not guilty? I think it would kind of be fun, since we have a lot of attorneys in the building, to get a few to come over here, and we could almost do like a small shadow jury, or like mock jury here.
Now they are all criminal defense lawyers.
Okay, so all criminal defense.
You're not going to get, we can ask them to be objective, but we can, who should we hail? Let's get Laura Young.
Okay.
Now,
All right, so we're gonna do our own little jury over
The
here.
person we're bringing first is a rabid.
Hey Tim.
Get him in here.
Yeah. Tim, you're gonna be part of our jury. He's making a friend. Yes, we are drinking Guinness. I was feeling a little under the weather today, and apparently Guinness are good for that. It's like medicine. All right, so we have juror number 004. Okay.
Rabid criminal defense lawyer, by the way. So she was so busy being rabid, she may not have been following this trial. But people want to know.
Let's introduce her.
This is Laura Young. Brilliant, smart, funny, deputy public defender here.
She has very fun hair.
And we've tried cases with her. She knows what she's talking about. And just straight out.
We actually tried a double murder in front of Judge Newman with her in December.
Right, that double murder that we have referenced from time to time. So that's still under some motions. But I guess what is the question?
So yeah,
potential juror?
if you were on the jury, what would you say? Objectively, based on.
And she has sat on a jury before.
I did.
Federal
It was
jury.
a
Civil jury.
Yeah. What would I say? It's really hard for me to be objective, you guys. I don't actually know. I think I would be voting guilty. There's just I can't get past the line about being at the dog kennel.
That is good evidence.
That's the best point for the state. The lie.
That is pretty tough.
The lie that was easy and convincing, as great motorists keep saying.
Right. All right, so we've got one guilty. Luke, we all know what you would say.
I don't know what you would say. What would you say?
I have been asked this question. I don't think he did the shooting. I think he knows way more than he did reveal. I think he chose a certain strategy and theory that he thought would help. I think it has a lot to do with his drug use, drug ties. I'm a man of science. I like science and doesn't lie. I love science in the crime scene, and
You just don't like the circumstantial nature of the evidence.
circumstantial evidence is all well and good,
Judge Newman instructed the jury on that.
It's true.
but I haven't heard anything about any argument, anything. All the so-called motive did was get a microscope up his ass.
We're gonna get kicked out.
I agree with that. I do think the motive stuff was just overblown and they went way too far down that rabbit hole for no good reason.
And when I put that, there's doubt in the case for me when I think about the math of the trajectory that Sled did. I think there's two shooters. I think Alex knows probably who they are, and I think he feels extreme guilt over it. I don't think he killed his family, but I think he essentially might as well have because it's so tied to what he was doing. So I would, if it was me, I would be a holdout. I'd be a real pain in the butt. I would hang that jury up.
Nothing new there.
And be voting not guilty.
Okay, we got one guilty, one not guilty. We're gonna go with Brian first.
Okay.
Well, what's my belief, or what do I think the jury's gonna do?
If you were on the jury, what would your verdict be? Would you vote guilty or not guilty?
Well, I'd be obsessed with the lie that Alec told initially, but I'd be think about all the doubt in the case. I think if I were a jury member, I would be compelled, if I'm following the law, to probably say I'm undecided. And I think my guesstimate would be a hung jury. Unless they just hate him so much because he's done so many people so wrong, which is why the state wanted to get in that motive evidence, which is really just bad character evidence. But my gut says hung.
I agree. I thought I was just voting for myself. Like my personal
Yeah, so you gotta vote for so you gotta
Guilty or not
decide guilty or not guilty.
Well, I think he's not guilty of the actual crime, but he's not telling the truth about who certainly did the crime, and I think he knows. That's my opinion on that.
So you vote not guilty.
Not guilty.
We hang that thing up.
All right. I am going to find this interesting because
I'm pretty persuadable though.
yeah,
Oh, we need these
You wanna be
guys.
on our
to
TikTok?
yeah.
Let me.
We've got more jurors.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, and it's happy birthday.
Get in, quick, get in and be a jerk.
All right.
Yep.
Another lawyer. A very good lawyer, very passionate lawyer.
Very
We
smart.
don't know how much she's been following this Murdaugh trial, but the question from the viewers is, what would our vote be if we were on a jury? So now you may not have enough evidence to make that decision, but just go ahead and give them. But based on what you,
She's been involved in her own murder trial for the past 5 weeks.
That's
so,
right, that's right.
She's been a little bit.
I have no
There
idea.
are other murder trials going
I
on.
know, right?
apparently.
I really have no idea, except it seems like he pled guilty to 99 fraudulent transaction things, so he's definitely guilty of those. If you got 1 year for all 99 of those, you're dying in prison, which I don't want for anybody, but I don't know the whole murder story.
A very good point. A very good point that the jury will probably be thinking about as they compromise back there is, well, he's going to die in prison anyway. Let's just, can we do the unthinkable? Can we do the thing that might get us criticized? So,
What is a reasonable doubt?
good job, Bree. Thank you, Bree. Thank you for your insight.
Who else should I bring?
We're going to bring some more people over.
You don't want to give your opinion?
Yeah, let's get Tim's opinion.
Do you want to go? All right. So my husband, I'm going to come over here. My husband, Tim, is not a lawyer. He is a high school counselor.
Not a lawyer.
Not a lawyer.
Not a lawyer.
But he has heard so much of this case from me. So I think he could make perhaps an educated decision as a potential juror.
My very uneducated decision is that he is guilty. I think it's going to wind up being a hung jury.
All right. Heard it here first.
Somebody grab some more
We're in a
people.
very tight space if you can't tell.
You should grab Patrick.
We're grabbing
He's probably
another
outside. Grab
another
Patrick,
attorney.
a non-attorney.
Oh, a non-attorney.
Who has different viewpoints from a lot of people here. This would be quite interesting.
So I also, I don't know. I really go back and forth like almost every day when we do a live and we're discussing, and then I watch it.
coming.
And
He's got- he's on
I don't
call.
really know what's going on.
Let me get some of you.
I think that the circumstantial evidence is really, really damning. What I think really did it for me was when the OnStar data came out and he took the path to Almeida, and the phone was found, in the woods along that route. That pretty much kind of solidified it with me, on top of already the lies about not being there. The timeline is just so tight. The very short nap, the 20 seconds from when you pulled up and then called 911, but yet you say that you checked the pulse, rolled people over. It just all seems so wish-washy that I think I would have to go guilty. But there are days where I'm like, I don't know. So
We talk to our mother every day, and she, as proud as she is of what we do, she would 100% string him up, find him guilty, give him a meal any day of the week.
So we've got one more person coming. He's outside. He'll be coming in a second as our non-lawyer representative in the lawyer bar.
Do we want to talk about John Metter's closing?
We do want to talk about John Murdaugh.
So we've tried cases against Metters. We respect Metters. He's probably the truest murder case trial lawyer involved amongst all the sides, and you can see that. He didn't have any notes. He came in late. He was just hired by the Attorney General's office right before the trial.
Yeah, he was literally poached for his trial abilities in this case.
We were talking about it right out of the gate. He's going to do the closing, the final word of the jury. And you can see what he brings to the table, which is a lot of emotion, a lot of drama. Now, he has sometimes been criticized for being dramatic at points when it doesn't really call for it, but this case is all about the drama. He brought a lot of homespun wisdom, anecdotes, stories. I mean, life is all about storytelling. If you're not storytelling, then no one is listening to you. So he could do that. Now, he was attacking the other side. He was trying to get the jury to be inflamed indignant by the fact that the defense was putting Sled on trial. How dare they? How dare they? Life is about choices, so things of that nature. To really direct some rage against Murdaugh and to say, look, y'all, bring your common sense. And not in a dry way, but bring it with you all the way back into that jury room and send a message, essentially. And so that's what he was there for. And he did what I expected. A lot of inflection, change in tone, change in body posture to keep attention. So he certainly kept attention. And his relative, 45-minute closing didn't feel that long. It did not feel like I aged 10 years.
Well, it's because it was entertaining.
Right. I am going to pause real quick. So we are obviously at a local bar in South Carolina with a lot of other attorneys.
Let's get a non-attorney
And
here.
as it's getting later, it is getting louder. So we are going to try to be louder. We're going to try to squeeze in here. Thank you guys for letting us
We're
know
doing a live
the background
TikTok.
is getting a little
We've
too
been doing a
too
podcast and other things about the Murdaugh trial.
Right, I saw something today. I saw you today.
And this doesn't help.
Did you like that?
Yeah, that was interesting.
So let's get Patrick in.
All right, so we've got another potential fake mock juror.
Patrick is a very smart guy, non-lawyer, former Coast Guard, former male model, long time ago, but he still got it. He still got it. Worked a lot for the federal government. But, so let's get a non-lawyer take. The question is, if you were sitting on that jury, based on what you know, would you convict or not?
Well, I haven't been following it as closely as maybe I should. But I would say, I saw some of your old podcasts on the way and everything. And, to me, he's in a tough spot.
So you think if you were on that jury with a decision, guilty box or not guilty, you'd be...
Well, my feeling would be, well, if it wasn't him who did it, then who did it?
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. I mean, who else would have done this? For what motivation? I mean, it's either, the man is obviously not very, outstanding, I would say, as a citizen.
No.
All the things he did, he's probably under a lot of pressure. I mean, I think that there's too much evidence against him.
So you check that guilty box.
I couldn't say that now because I didn't see everything, but based on what I did see, I'd say that he's looking pretty good.
So kennel video, him down there a few minutes prior to their deaths per the state. I mean, that would do it, right?
Well, I would say that there is so much evidence against him. I'm not sure that there's any way he could defend it. So to me, if I'm on the jury, we've got two people dead. Probably based on what I know, if I had to make a quick judgment, I'd say he received guilty.
Okay. Very good. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I think that puts our count at 2 not guilty from these 2, and I guess that would mean 4 guilty. I'm pretty torn, honestly. I go back and forth every day. I change my mind.
Well, let's talk about a legal issue that...
We will need to talk pretty loud.
Yeah. So, one legal issue that was a problem that John Meadows did is right out of the gates when he was talking about what is murder, and it does require malice. It's the unlawful killing of another with malice, a forethought. You got to kind of plan it, even if shortly. And he basically misstated the law to the jurors. He said, you can infer malice from the use of deadly weapons, from the 2 long guns that were used in this case. And that was the law about 10 years ago, but it's changed in South Carolina. And so really, what lawyers say is not evidence, but he misstated the law in a really big way, and Jim Griffin did not object. And what a lawyer should be doing in a moment like that is object and honestly ask for a mistrial. You got to ask for a mistrial motion to preserve that moment for the appellate courts. And I'm not sure if Jim Griffin wasn't aware of the change in the law or just didn't catch it, but that was a big moment today that was real problematic.
Well, that's right, and in one sense, this case it's a whodunit. It's not. Some cases, lawyers really argue about malice versus a lesser charge, like voluntary manslaughter in South Carolina, which doesn't require malice. That's your classic. I found my wife, in bed with another man on my lunch break, and I just couldn't help but kill them. My passions were inflamed. It's not that case. But the reason why it's so important is that jury's back there. They're horse trading. They're compromising. And some of them will go, well, look, fine. I think he probably did it, but man, they're talking about malice, talking about evil and this and that, and like, show me where the evil is. And then, so like, in that compromise, they can go, well, better said, the evil is allowed to be inferred just from the gun, guys. Come on. It's not. It used to be that way. It's no longer inferred. The evil has to be from the evidence, from your mind, your words, your actions. Sure. What you do can infer malice, but it's not just simply because you shot somebody. That is not malice. It has to be a combination of things. So that was immediately objectionable. They should have moved for a mistrial. There's tons of legal error, but that really goes to kind of a post-conviction relief. That's ineffective assistance of counsel. If I'm looking at this case in 5 years and it will be on appeal, somebody will be challenging the lawyer's job on this case, and it's their job to object to that. Because a jury could horse trade back there and go, malice is the gun. Okay, we've answered that question. But malice should be a very hard question to answer in any murder case. It's not just that you killed somebody, it's that you did it with malice just before. So that was a huge issue that I immediately took to Twitter and got in some wars with people and got commented on, but I also sent a screenshot of the case law.
So we've gotten a lot of comments today for us to drink. So we're going to cheers real quick to a fair trial.
Fair trial.
Fair trial. And to Bubba.
To Bubba.
Most importantly.
Love that dog. Whatever data is on his GPS collar,
We'll never know.
we'll never know, but it's a gold mine.
And for that we drink.
Sorry.
Thanks for tuning in. We've also got a lot of comments. Actually, wait, before we get to that, I want to circle back to kind of Luke, what you were talking about. So, Judge Newman laid it out kind of plain and simple for everyone today that Alec Murdaugh is being charged with 4 different accounts. So we've got the 2 different murder charges. So they're separating Paul and Maggie. Now, you all have actually tried a case before, not similar, but where someone is being charged on 2 different accounts of murder, and they were found guilty of one, but innocent of the other. I hope I'm allowed to say this right now. Talk to us about, like, what if that happened? What if this jury finds Alec Murdaugh guilty of, let's say, Paul, but not of Maggie? You know, we've got this 2-shooter theory. I'm still talking, and go ahead.
Well, that's what we call an inconsistent verdict, where the facts don't really demonstrate any difference between motive for the killings, between the 2 victims, or means or mechanisms, but yet the jury gets back there, and that's what Luke describes as like the horse trading, the compromise that happens in the jury room. And we did have a trial recently where that did occur, and we were arguing self-defense essentially and defense of one's home, but there was a close contact wound, gunshot wound to the head, just like in this case. And so basically,
If you believe defense.
correct. And so the jury clearly made both victims were entering the home under the same facts. So there's nothing to distinguish them really. And so the jury made a compromise, and the victim that had the head wound, our client was found guilty, and the victim that did not, our client was acquitted of that murder. So
We would not expect to see that in this case.
right.
Because whoever killed Maggie and Paul did it at the same time, under the same circumstances. It's not a self-defense case. It's not a case of a lesser mental state. It's either they did it or they did not. And so if they're finding, acquittal on one and a guilty on the other, it's pure compromise. And it really doesn't matter because murder in South Carolina carries 30 years minimum to life in prison. So I tell you what, if Judge Newman gets a murder on Paul but not guilty on Maggie, he's still sentencing to life.
Right.
Well, I don't want to say that. On average with Judge Newman, he's sentenced to 35. But it was a self-defense case. It was baked into the case that our guy was in bed, literally, when he thought he was being home invaded. So it's not just an out of the blue kind of random killing. That if you think you have the right person, that's a very bad, malicious act. So I think Newman would give, under these circumstances, if he only found one verdict of guilty, he would probably light Murdaugh up on that just alone. So it really doesn't matter if that occurred. But that's very unlikely to occur. That would be bizarre in this case.
So I know we are aware that the noise is getting pretty loud. We are again at a bar for those of you who haven't been joining from the beginning. We do have one last burning question of who would play who in the movie of this case. I believe, first of all, that Alec Murdaugh would be best portrayed by Jesse Plemons. I know you guys kind of gave some insight of who you would think. What was the...
Oh, I said that Billy Bob Thornton
Billy Bob
could play the groundskeeper pretty well, or the kennel keeper. It's you have to have a real sharp kind of player to play Dick. You have to have a more cerebral guy to play Jim Griffin. I think John Metters.
Mandy Matney, who's a journalist locally who's covered this from the start, put something kind of funny on Twitter today, saying that she always thinks Griffin looks like the guy from The Office with the bald head. What's his name?
Toby?
Yeah, let's see. Let me see if I can figure out.
Morgan Freeman for Judge Newman.
Ooh, that'd be good.
That'd be very good. Great
Or,
call.
you know who would have been good?
Stacey Matthews, great call.
Remember Sidney Poitier? He would have been good for Judge Newman too.
Alec Baldwin to play Alex. I really like Jesse Plemons. Do y'all know who Jesse Plemons
I don't know who that is.
Have you seen Friday Night Lights?
Long time ago.
You know Landry, the quarterback's best friend?
The bigger guy?
Yeah. No. I'm going to show you guys Jesse Plemons. This I haven't pulled up, so make sure. Landry. I think he would be a great Alec.
Yeah. He's got such a kind face.
He was also in Breaking Bad. Look, I feel like, or maybe Buster. I don't know.
What if they just really, the guy, the actor from Dexter, just make him, because he's redheaded, make him be Murdaugh with that sinister kind of vibe about it? Yeah, that'd be good. Who would play Harper Lane?
Someone wants to know, are you two twins? Yes, they are twins.
we are.
Brian is 8 minutes older, and we decided last night, well, we didn't decide, but we figured out that they are Libras. Now, peacemakers, which is great for attorneys. Sometimes.
Local judges call me the bad twin, he's the good twin.
And, well, we don't need to get into it.
Correct.
The reason for that we'll discuss on another episode.
Is that bad for the sounds?
Yeah, probably.
It's not a curse word.
What?
We'll share that content later.
Alright.
Who wants to know the content? We'll see. A lot of votes for Alec Baldwin.
For who?
I think Alec Murdaugh.
Who's going to play Creighton Waters?
Yeah, Creighton Waters. Let's hear his name.
Edward Norton?
No. Steve Buscemi?
People want to know who's a better poker player between the two of you.
Me for sure. Luke
People
has,
guess that Brian would
Luke
be.
has no poker face.
I have a very emotive face.
Luke spills all his secrets.
I don't spill secrets, but I don't hold back on how I actually feel. So, if I'm feeling like I got a good hand, you're going to know it.
yeah, just keep firing off any questions that you guys have. We'll just be here enjoying our Guinness.
It's quite lovely.
It is getting lively in here. Maybe we have some other jurors or potential jurors that we haven't spoken to. Who's
Is Sasha in here? He's probably not.
Do you guys know Alex Murdaugh personally?
No.
But I will say, South Carolina is very small, so it is very likely that you know someone that knows the family.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll just let that rest there.
That's confirmed.
Yeah.
Of course, we know all the lawyers, all the judge. But I do have that standing appointment. I do need to talk to Mark.
Yeah, we do have a legal appointment that we need to cover here at the bar. How does that work with our live video, Hannah?
I mean, we can call it for tonight if we want, or we could also do the legal appointment live.
No, we can't do
Give
that.
us some case details.
Case details that we can't discuss. Well, we could call it for tonight. Maybe we'll pop on later. Later will be way more lively.
And we're now in deliberation countdown mode.
Yes.
And so we can talk about what that means and what the next steps are for the jury. You know, what they're allowed to do, what kind of notes they're allowed to give, what kind of questions they're allowed to give. You know, Judge Newman does give them the law in written form back to the jury room, and he's very rare in terms of South Carolina state court judges don't typically do that, so he likes to do that. And so that, you know, most of the questions that you'll see from the jurors are either asking the judge to reread the law because they're kind of debating about what was given to them, or they want to hear like a portion of the transcript played back. And so here we will not have any questions about the law because they have it literally in their hands.
From a lawyer perspective, this moment right now, if you have your jury out, is extremely stressful because you don't have anything to do except think the worst for your prospective position, and you can't go very far. So you're not going to like go and relax. The judge has your cell phone, and if you get a call from his clerk, it means you need to rush in there and deal with either a question or a verdict or a legal issue, and so you're just on pins and needles of pure and utter agony right now. So I will have a drink for all those lawyers right now because I know exactly how they feel. To those lawyers, regardless of what side you're on, you all put in a good shift.
We do have one comment that says we have to finish the beers on the live. That's just TikTok rule. And we are close. Luckily, they're not full.
Very close.
We are very close. We've got a lot of more questions, probably from people joining us a little bit later. If you believe Alec Murdaugh to be guilty or not guilty, we have kind of fleshed this out. But summarized version, not the Creighton Waters version, is
Very concise, summarized version is
not 4 hour long.
he didn't do the killing, but he knows very likely who did it because he brought that storm upon his doorstep.
Right. I'm looking at him. I know he's a liar. I know he's a thief. I don't view him as a killer. I think his actions brought this down. Somebody's dad, due to his drug dealings, sent him a message, wanted to punish him. I think he very well knows who it is. The motive doesn't make sense to me for all the reasons we've been discussing. All it did was expose all this. I don't think any of this would have ever been uncovered as financial crimes had he not, had this killing happen. I think his firm, which is super powerful, super rich, super reputable, would have covered this up, paid off the debts, put him on a long-term repayment plan, and probably fired him. Or maybe not, because that would look too obvious. So I think it makes no sense to detract. All it did was attract attention.
For me, it was the OnStar data that came forward. It was kind of the nail in the coffin for me, in alignment with where Maggie's cell phone was found, just after already knowing like the lies that had been told about Snapchat and his location at that time. That had me leaning really far towards guilty. There are obviously moments and days where I'm thinking, you know, maybe not. There is this reasonable doubt, but the circumstantial evidence is pretty powerful. I would probably have to say guilty. Whether he himself killed Maggie and Paul, I believe he knows who did, and I believe that he has something to do with why they have been killed. So whether he arranged a hit or shot one, I don't know, but those are our thoughts.
And we have to finish this
We have to
beer.
finish these beers on camera. Go ahead and subscribe to our social medias, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or anything like that, so that when we do go live, you can tune in and join us and perhaps crack a beer yourself. And until then, we will see you all next time. Thanks so much.
Cheers, everybody.
Or y'all finish.